For race 3 of this year's World Championship, the scene moves from the heat of South America to here, the heat of Kyalami near Johannesburg. The South African temperature's high, as it was in the Argentine and Brazil, but there's a big difference that's got every team except one worried, and that's the altitude. For Kyalami is 6,000 feet above sea level, and that makes normal engines gasp for air and run at reduced power, but not the French Renaults. For the 1.5-litre Renault Elf cars are turbocharged, a fact which gives them an enormous effective horsepower advantage over the rest. And with victory in Brazil, they've been going quite well enough without that. And it's Jean-Pierre Jabouille's Renault in pole position, a chilling 4.5 seconds faster than the lap record. But he needs points for the championship, for after the first 2 rounds, it's Alan Jones in the lead by 4 points ahead of René Arnoux, with Elio De Angelis in the Lotus and Piquet in the Brabham equal third, and Keke Rosberg in the Fittipaldi fifth. Alan Jones first in the Argentine, and he leads the World Championship. Gilles Villeneuve, Ferrari, first here last year, but he's yet to finish a race in 1980. And his team leader is the world champion Jody Scheckter in the Ferrari, doing his pre-race exercises, limbering up for the 78 laps ahead of him. Elio De Angelis, 21, youngest in the race, second in Brazil, in the Lotus. And as ever, the relaxed Carlos Reutemann. Last year with Lotus, this year with Williams, but 2 retirements behind him. He needs points. The grid, row 1, the 2 Renaults, Pole, Jabouille, second fastest Arnoux, row 2, Piquet and Lafitte, row 3, Pironi and Reutemann, row 4, Depailler, a magnificent comeback in the Alfa Romeo and Alan Jones, row 5, yes, row 5, the 2 Ferraris, Scheckter and Villeneuve. And now, with the grid lined up, it's warm-up time for the lap before the start.
Well, of course,
and with me, as ever, James Hunt.
Well, of course, Murray, one of the big differences about the South African track at Kyalami is that it's a track that emphasises the performance of cars to a far greater extent than any other track in the world. And that is to say that it's really a very easy track to drive on. I think here the difference between a really good driver and somebody driving not very quickly is something like 2 or only 3/10 of a second a lap. I remember when I was driving at Kyalami, I'd do 3 laps at time X, put in a really big effort, get one really right on the 4th lap, thinking that I'd gone just like that half a second quicker that one can sometimes produce, and come in with like half a tenth quicker. And it's very demoralising at that point. And there is a problem with Elio De Angelis, his car. He doesn't seem to have got away with the field. They're having to push start him. Now, if they can get his car going, there's a new rule that's been in existence for about a year now, whereby he cannot now fight his way back through the field and rejoin his proper grid position. He'll have to stick at the back and start from the back if he can catch them up, that is, on the warm-up lap. Now, as I was saying about Kyalami, it is a problem. It emphasises car performance, and back in like 77 and 76 years at the Grand Prix, when the cars were running very closely, we had, I think, something like 14 cars being covered in the first second spread of times. Now this year we have the 2 Renaults nearly 2 seconds quicker than the very next cars. Of course, we didn't have turbocharging then, but the spread has definitely come. There is De Angelis got going again, so he should be able to catch the field up and join at the back. Now recently I was asked by somebody what those white lines are at Kyalami, and for those of you who are interested, it's not a regular street being used or anything like that. It is in fact purely used for sports car racing. When they have long distance races, which they quite frequently have at Kyalami, they have some cars that are a lot quicker than others, and the slow ones have to stay one side and let the fast ones through on the other. That's a safety thing. That's the final corner right onto the straight that we see, which is a second gear hairpin where the cars go very light. It's a very spectacular place to watch because the cars really slide a lot.
Out of the kink then, that is the right-hander in the background. Up to the start and finish point, underneath the banner, come the 2 Renaults. On the right, Jean-Pierre Jabouille. On the left is René Arnoux. And Elio De Angelis has got up amongst the grid at the back, which is where he will have to stay. Piquet comes into position alongside the Ligier there of Jacques Lafitte. And there in the background, the 2 Saudi Leyland Williams cars, Carlos Reutemann and Alan Jones, with Didier Pironi, 78 laps, 200 miles, any moment it's go, and it is. Now watch the Renaults, will they get away quickly? Yes, quickly enough, but Alan Jones comes through from the 4th row and is up to Crowthorne, the right-hander, at the end of the straight with the Renaults. But now Arnoux moves across and lets Jabouille through and into the lead. Already the Renaults are leading. It's Jean-Pierre Jabouille on the first corner in the Renault, leading his teammate in the turbocharged Renault. René Arnoux second. Arnoux generously moved aside.
Yes, I have to say that was a horrible manoeuvre by Arnoux. I know that he's acting under team instructions, Murray, that he has to let Jabouille lead, and quite frankly, if I was his team manager, I'd be very cross about that. I'd want to see him, as he was leading down to the first corner, he's got to go with it for at least a lap, and then when everything's clear and easy, let his teammate through, not risk a coming together with his teammate or jumping a place from behind, where Jones could have done if he'd known what was coming then. It was really a mistake of inexperience by Arnoux there.
And it looks as though he's got away with it, because he's still in second position. In third place behind him in the white Saudia Leyland Williams car is Alan Jones. In fourth position, it's Jacques Lafitte in the blue and white Ligier Gitane car. Then Carlos Reutemann is in fifth place. Didier Pironi is sixth. Scheckter is seventh. They finish lap 1, 77 to go. And it's Jabouille, Arnoux, Jones, Lafitte, Reutemann, Piquet, and then Scheckter and Jarier going through together. So Jody Scheckter, the world champion in the Ferrari, is in sixth place as he goes through at the end of the first lap into the right-hander at Crowthorne, then from Crowthorne to Barbecue Bend, then up to the left-hander at the Junkskai Sweep, and Jean-Pierre Jabouille, who won the French Grand Prix in 1979, only got one Grand Prix victory behind him, leads points in the World Championship, leads the South African Grand Prix from René Arnoux.
Well, the Renault seem to have settled down straight into the lead. They're confirming their practice form, which was utterly dominant. Obviously, they have a huge advantage, probably something in the order of 100 horsepower over all the other cars, with their ability to force their air in and take away the rarefication from which everybody else suffers. But it'll be interesting to see, because with that big advantage, they have presumably worked very hard for reliability. I expect they will have turned their turbocharging boost right down as low as they can. I expect they're running pretty hard tyres, and I'm sure the team's preparation will have concentrated only on finishing rather than speed, which they've obviously got plenty of.
Piquet goes through in sixth position ahead of Jody Scheckter, who is seventh. The leaders, Jabouille, Arnoux, Jones, and that is Elio De Angelis, the young Italian driver in the Lotus, out of the race already on the second lap. He's obviously had a coming together or something close to it. He started right from the back, and you can see he's taken part of the catch fencing with him. So his race is run on the second lap out of 78. With the Renaults in front, and that's Clay Regazzoni in the Unipart Ensign going through the field. He's about halfway down the field of 24 competitors. Now you can see what this Kyalami circuit is like, with the hills in the background. And Jeff Lees, the only Englishman in the race, in the shadow, started in 24th position, just made it at the end of practice, and is well down the field at the moment, but at least he's getting his second Grand Prix drive. And there, the leaders, the two distinctive yellow and white French Renaults from Viry-Châtillon. There is Alan Jones third, Lafitte fourth, Regazzoni in fifth position, Jody Scheckter sixth, Piquet is seventh, and Jarier is in eighth position.
Well, the only real turn-up so far in the race is, of course, Alan Jones has made an absolutely storming start from the fourth row of the grid. In fact, had he not been competing with the two turbocharged cars, he probably would have led into the first corner. If you saw, he pulled right up alongside them, and then their power got the better of things. And at the moment, he seems to be confirming that considerable improvement on form over his practice form, because he's not dropping back too much from the Renaults, although, of course, it's very hard to say just exactly what they're pushing. Jones, in fact, has closed up a little bit since the first couple of laps. If you watch carefully now, you'll see Jones is close now. We're going through the twisty section of the track, and we're coming to the last corner before the big straight sections where the power will tell. This is the second gear corner out onto the main straight. Now, Jones is probably, not more than 25 yards behind there. Now, you just have a look and see how far he's behind by the end of this straight, and it gets worse because there's more straight to come after the hairpin at the end of this. already he's back to 40 or 50 yards, probably more than 50 now.
So a lap completed, and it is still
no, well, I'm afraid we didn't get the shot at the end of the straight to show how it is, but we'll see the cars round the corner. There are the two Renaults rounding the corner at the end of the straight.
So now into lap 9, and Jacques Lafitte is in third position ahead of Alan Jones, the man who won in the Argentine, and it's Jacques Lafitte versus Alan Jones for third position that we are looking at now. The Frenchman who won the Argentine and Brazilian Grand Prix last year went on to win a third victory. At one time was tipped for the World Championship until the Ligier went sour last year, and Alan Jones challenging hard in the Williams, the Frank Williams Grand Prix engineering car, and that's Eddie Cheever. Eddie Cheever, the young Italian-American driver in the Osella, in only his second Grand Prix, struggling out of the car, which he failed to qualify in the Argentine and Brazil, but it's been lightened and modified. He qualified for this race extremely well, and he's limping. He's obviously bashed his leg, and Cheever out of the race, and this is Patrick Depailler, who came back magnificently to qualify 7th fastest in practice, and in the background it's Gilles Villeneuve. That's the Ferrari in the background of Gilles Villeneuve, who's coming to the pits, and there he is, out. Gilles Villeneuve then in trouble already in the Ferrari, and Ferraris have yet to finish a race this year, neither Scheckter nor Villeneuve that we're looking at now. Villeneuve, who won 3 Grand Prix last year and finished second in the World Championship, has yet to finish a race in 1980. Now, have the Ferraris got their reliability back? That's Patrick Depailler, still in the pits, who drove for Ligier last year, won in Spain, broke both his legs with a very nasty hang gliding accident, but is now out. And that's Riccardo Patrese. Patrese, the Italian, in the arrows at Crowthorne Corner. It must be his brakes or tyres failing perhaps, but well and truly off.
Well, they're going down like 9 pence at the moment, Murray, which is most unfortunate because we've got a bit of a processional race on our hands right now, but of course there's a long way to go and things can liven up. It's interesting to me what you were saying about Ferrari just now with Villeneuve back in the pits, and they haven't had a finish yet this year. Well, of course, you know, one can't say that their reliability is gone yet. There's an awful lot of luck involved in motor racing, and I'm quite sure that Ferrari are handling all their preparation, and particularly their engineering, in exactly the same way as they have done since '74 when they had hardly a breakdown. If you remember, Schecter's car didn't break down last year. Things go up and down in waves, and that's one of the frustrating things about motor racing for participants, be you on the design side, the driving side, or the management side. It just seems to be things always happen in patches.
Lap 11 out of 78, and we look at the two Renaults reliably punching their way round in front. Jean-Pierre Jabouille, the Frenchman, 37 years old from Paris, and his teammate, number 16, 31-year-old René Arnoux from Magny-Cours in his 21st Grand Prix, of which he has won one. Arnoux, there is Jabouille, and that is Alan Jones. Alan Jones, who is in 4th position. There is Jacques Lafitte ahead of him in 3rd position. That's how close the battle is between the Ligier in 3rd position, as again, it's not a happy day for Alfa Romeo. This is the 179 Alfa Romeo, and it's the Frenchman Patrick Depailler on his comeback drive with his repaired legs, as it were, working well, as we look at Jarier, number 3 in the new 010 Tyrrell, against Nelson Piquet in the Brabham, battling for 7th position, and behind them is Pironi. So the 7th, 8th and 9th men are together, and Jody Scheckter seems to be missing. There is Jarier in the Tyrrell, Piquet behind him in the Brabham, Pironi behind him in the Ligier, very close, and Jody Scheckter in the pits. Was in 6th position. Now you can see how the driver virtually lies down in a Formula One car, body top off. So Jody Scheckter is mirroring perhaps whatever the trouble his teammate Villeneuve. In the light blue shirt is Mauro Forgieri, the car's designer and the Ferrari team chief, shouting as ever because he scorns the conventional electronic means. and it's a very, very leisurely pit stop. Is Jody Scheckter going out again or not? Yes is the answer. So Scheckter accelerates out of the pits.
They didn't look very confident there, Murray. They didn't seem to be in much of a hurry, so I would think that he's just going out to give the car a try to decide if it's terminal or not. In fact, as Villeneuve goes through right beside him, so we'll see how Jody keeps up with him after that little stop. And there go the leaders, the two Renaults, still cruising along on their way comfortably ahead, with Arnoux being an immaculate number 2 man and sitting just nicely behind Jabouille, waiting to pick up the pieces if anything goes wrong for his team leader.
18 cars left in this race now on the 15th lap out of the 24 that started. Eddie Cheever crashed out of the race. Elio De Angelis in the catch netting, both of them apparently perfectly all right. As we look at the Argentine driver, Ricardo Zunino, who is the team mate of Piquet in the Brabham. Jody Scheckter being passed by Jacques Lafitte, who is in 3rd position. And so Scheckter must be in trouble and perhaps coming into the pits again, because it looks to me from the way, yes, he's crossing the line as Lafitte takes the racing line, and Jody Scheckter with the body of the car flexing in front, probably nothing particularly significant about that. But Jody Scheckter, who's defending his World Championship, is having just as much trouble this year as Andretti, the defending champion, had last year. And Jody Scheckter into the pits. Now, out. Jody Schecter's retiring, out of the car, his 3rd time in 3 races, and that's the same for both Ferraris, who failed to finish in all 3 Grand Prix. And the leaders end yet another lap, chasing and about to lap Villeneuve. Jabouille goes through and past Villeneuve. No, he doesn't. Villeneuve holds the line. Arnoux closes up on Jabouille.
I think that demonstrates really how much the Renault drivers are stroking it. Villeneuve actually made room very politely and correctly to let the 2 Renaults through, and I think Jabouille also driving very intelligently, not pushing it at all. I think they're just simply using the power of their engines on the straights, cruising it round the corners, no late braking, no going in quickly with any sort of a risk. Just turn up the wick down the straight and let the turbocharger do the work. And of course, it was interesting to note that the Renault team manager before the race made an announcement to the effect that they'd strictly decided Jabouille was the team leader, although Arnoux was ahead of him on points because Jabouille was unlucky enough to break down while leading in Brazil, and that Jabouille, if they were running 1-2, Jabouille would be in front. That's Derek Daly going out of the pits. I don't know what his trouble was in his Tyrrell, but with the Renault situation being very, very simple in that Arnoux would have to hold hard behind Jabouille.
So Daly on his way in 0-1-0 Tyrrell, and in this 78th lap, Jabouille leads after 20 laps. Arnoux 2nd, Lafitte 3rd, Jones 4th, Reutemann 5th, and Jean-Pierre Jarier in the other Tyrrell in 6th position. And the leaders coming up now to Jeff Lees, number 17, the Englishman in the shadow, the man who drove in 1 Grand Prix for the Tyrrell team last year, an ex-Formula Ford champion 3 times over, and is now driving in America in Can-Am races, and very much tipped henceforth for a proper Grand Prix seat, because he's impressed considerably in practice here at Kyalami. Now, Jabouille laps him, and that's Jacques Lafitte in 2nd position as we look at the white car go round the corner and down the straight towards us. Jacques Lafitte is in 2nd position. He's lapped Daly, and he's now well ahead of Alan Jones, who is in 4th position. And it's Jean-Pierre Jabouille as we look at Jacques Lafitte.
It's Jacques Lafitte is 3rd. We've got the 2 Renaults in front of him, and Reutemann is 4th.
So, yes, Jabouille, the 37-year-old driver, by no means the oldest in the race, incidentally. And there is the 3rd place man, Jacques Lafitte, passing Jeff Lees as the 2 Renaults did a few hundred yards back. Jacques Lafitte trying very, very hard indeed, and I do believe he's starting to make somewhat of an impression. That's how close it is. There are the 2 Renaults. There is the Ligier ahead of Jeff Lees, and Jeff Lees has got Daly behind him. Now, can Jacques Lafitte do anything about the two turbocharged Renaults in front of him?
Well, one sincerely hope so, Murray, but I do get the feeling that the Renaults are playing a bit with the opposition, because Lafitte and Jones, of course, have both gone before him, have both been obviously driving flat out throughout the race, and the gap has sort of gone up and down. The Renaults have gone pulled out a bit, came back a bit, pulled out a bit, and it rather looks as if Jabouille is playing with the opposition. Not a set of tactics that I would employ if I was in his happy position. I'd want to try and, without taking any risks or pushing it, I'd want to build up a 20 or 30 second lead, so that if I get a slow puncture or some other problem with the car that slows you rather than kills you, I'd be able to use that as a cushion later in the race. If you're just a couple of seconds in front, what can you do if something slows you down a bit? But we've had one of the interesting features already, certainly from the enthusiast point of view, people amongst our audience who follow motorsport carefully, has been a huge political row that's erupted here in Kyalami, and that's to do with changes of regulations. Now, as you no doubt know, one of the main features of Grand Prix racing over the last season has been its one-sidedness, in that the car performances have been widely variant, and some cars have dominated. Not all the same ones, but we've lost our close racing. This is hit today. It's a problem because of the turbocharged engines, but normally this is Gilles Villeneuve in the pits, so it looks like Ferrari have really concluded it as another disastrous day for them, and very much yes, that's the retirement for Villeneuve. Now, as I was saying about this row, we've got a problem with the skirts. The big breakthrough in performance has been through the aerodynamics, and we have things called skirts on the sides of the cars which run along the road. You can see them on a side shot. There the other side of the car is actually touching the road. It's spring-loaded, and this flows all the air under the car, and by some clever trickery that the designers have dreamt up underneath the car, they get a terrific vacuum created, and it makes them very fast. The only thing is, it's a new science, and nobody really knows what makes one fast and the other not fast, which is why we've got these big gaps. Now, the powers that be, unfortunately, have gone into a big battle on this subject, and instead of cooperating to bring the cars back to reasonable performance, there is general concern that the cars are too fast. We've had the constructors helpfully making suggestions to reduce performance, and then we've had their traditional political enemies vying for control of Grand Prix racing, and that is the international body, who is now called FISA. I'm not quite sure what it stands for, but somebody I know, no doubt will know. And they have given a sort of a challenge statement. They've ignored the set of suggestions that the working body for Formula One, comprising the constructors and other people involved, made, and just come out with a set of new rules that's going to arrive too early, breaking the rules about how soon they can be implemented, and the constructors have just simply said, no way, we're going to fight that, and we're back to politics. They're basically announced that skirts will be banned from the beginning of next season onwards, and the constructors have said we just don't accept that, mainly because there's as much politics as reality in this. And it's a great pity for Grand Prix racing. The two bodies are fighting each other yet again, because Grand Prix racing does need a major rethink for the regulations to get racing back to being more equal and exciting.
Alan Jones out. So with Lafitte closing on Jabouille and Arnoux, there is the car of the man that is leading the World Championship, the Australian Alan Jones, in his Saudi Williams car. Leyland car is out of the race, and that incidentally is not Alan Jones marching about on the bank in the flame-proof overalls and the helmet. It is one of the South African marshals who is very sensibly clad for his job. Alan Jones, first in the Argentine, leading the World Championship out of the race. So now, there, politics or no, the two skirted Renaults of Jean-Pierre Jabouille under the banner to start another lap, and there in the background is Jacques Lafitte with Arnoux in the white helmet in second position, and Jacques Lafitte is definitely gaining, and that's in the red and white car that Jabouille is gaining on is from Belfast, John Watson in the McLaren M29, and he is going to be lapped shortly by Jean-Pierre Jabouille and René Arnoux. And Watson is having a terrible season in 1980, as he did in 1979. He's going to be lapped by the Renaults, and that is Depailler again. On the right in the white shirt and the bald head is Engineer Chiti, the designer of the car. There is Jacques Lafitte, who is in third position. definitely at this point in the race catching the leaders. He was a lot further back. He's closed the gap. It's a question of whether the Renaults, which are still gaining on Watson, and there is Lafitte out of the right-hander and into the long straight on his way down to Crowthorne. This very experienced French driver in the Ford-powered car, 3-litre engine, is gaining on the Renaults. They're driving as a team, the two Frenchmen in front, the Frenchman in third position as well. And what's the driver's reaction, I wonder, to all these skirt problems that we've been hearing about?
Well, their reaction has been very fierce as well. I was just going to come to that, Murray. What's happened is that the two, as I say, potential governing bodies are fighting and failing to agree. Meanwhile, the drivers, who, led by Jody Scheckter, have been cheering very strongly for reducing the performance of cars, both from the safety point of view and in the hope that it'll make racing more equal, and their own personal skills can be put into effect rather than having a lot of designers doing it all from their home office. And but the only thing is the constructors have been leaning on their individual drivers to not support a ban on skirts, and we've had a major split in the Drivers' Association. I believe we've had 3 of the top drivers walk out on the association. I won't name them for the moment because I don't have full confirmation of exactly who it is or anything, but we've had at least 3 top drivers walk out on the association, as I have to say, egged on by their teams, and largely those drivers are drivers who, of course, have cars that do very well with skirts. And so one of the big problems with politics in Grand Prix racing is that people tend, of course, to fight for what's good for them rather than what's good for Grand Prix racing in the sport, which is a fairly reasonable, normal thing to do. But the guy who has a winning car at the front obviously wants to keep it that way, and the guy who's at the back obviously wants cars changed, and it makes an untenable situation.
And there is Carlos Reutemann, the Argentinian driver, in 4th position in the Saudia Leyland Williams car, Ford engine V8. And Reutemann, an enormous amount of Grand Prix experience. He has driven for Ferrari, he has driven for Brabham, he's driven for Lotus, and now he's in the Williams team. He has won 9 Grand Prix, but he hasn't finished in one in 1980 yet, because he had trouble both in the Argentine and in Brazil. However, he's going well in this race in 4th position. The 2 leaders in the Renaults driving so reminiscently of Mario Andretti and Ronnie Peterson in the Lotuses in 1978, just driving round at the front of the race together. Into the pits now, Bruno Giacomelli, the Formula 2 European champion of 1978, who drove for McLaren in 1 or 2 races and is now in the Alfa Romeo team. And like his teammate Patrick Depailler, is having quite a lot of trouble in this race, which they are now obviously using in the Alfa Romeo team as an extended test session, and rightly so. The rear wing off, so perhaps there is trouble with the gearbox down there. And the Alfa Romeo designer, team manager, leans over the car as Piquet now in 6th position. Nelson Piquet in the Brabham BT48 with the Ford V8 engine, unlike last year's car which had the V12 Alfa Romeo engine. The Brazilian is in 6th position ahead of Didier Pironi, and that is Pironi in the Ligier, the Frenchman, who is going very quickly indeed and is definitely gaining on Piquet. This is the battle in the race at the present moment. The battle between Pironi in the Ligier there, number 25, who is in 7th position, and ahead of him, Nelson Piquet in 6th position. Pironi, 4th in Brazil, driving for the Ligier team this year, where last year he drove for Tyrrell and had 1 or 2 very notable drives, including the one where he drove over the back of Niki Lauda's car at Brabham. And there is Piquet going through, there is Pironi going through, and here are the leaders. And Jacques Lafitte has now dropped back. Look, the leaders are clear of the corner, and Jacques Lafitte is not even in sight.
Yeah, well, I do hope, Murray, that the South African director who's handling this for us here is going to come back to that battle between Piquet and Pironi, because they are undoubtedly the only guys really going hard at it in the race. They're 2. There's Depailler going back to the pits again. The Alfa's in and out of the pits all afternoon. But these two young drivers, Piquet and Pironi, they're both two of the leading up-and-comers at the moment, and they're a couple of real tigers, and it's very visible that they're both absolutely on 10/10ths out there at the moment.
And this lot is Clay Regazzoni in the Ensign, Derek Daly in the Tyrrell, and the two leaders. And now you will see tactics and the way the leading ace drivers deal with the other ace drivers who are not leading. There is the Swiss 40-year-old oldest driver in the race, Clay Regazzoni, who has driven for Ferrari, has won 5 Grand Prix, including the British Grand Prix for the Saudi Williams team last year. And now the two Renaults are clear of the Tyrrell, and they're closing up on Clay Regazzoni. Regazzoni in the Ensign, which has yet to finish a race. It's a brand new Ralph Bellamy designed car. Didn't finish in the Argentine, didn't finish in Brazil. Looks as though it is going to finish in this race, which is now approximately 2/3 of the way through the full 78 laps. On the right then, number 14 in the Unipart Ensign, Regazzoni. Watch the leaders close up on him and take him.
Yes, here's the power of the Renault just showing itself yet again. Jabouille walks past Regazzoni on the straights. Interesting note though, we'll see if the drivers have done their homework, because Regazzoni in fact is one man who, when lapping, when you've got a comfortable lead, you give a pretty wide berth to and treat with a certain amount of respect. So we will see if Arnoux does that and just takes his time, because he obviously should be realising that he's got no possible rush. He's no longer under pressure from Lafitte, and in fact he is taking his time. He's not rushing into it. He's still not having a go, and we're now coming into the twisty section of the track, so I think he's driving very intelligent indeed. He's doing the right thing. He's just simply going to wait till the end of the lap and use his turbocharged power on the straight, which of course will take him comfortably past him with no risk. That's a very sensible piece of driving by René Arnoux, who of course is pretty young and inexperienced. He won his first Grand Prix in Brazil last week, but it takes a while to do these, and I think that's a most sensible effort.
And the knowledgeable amongst you will notice that the Renaults have got fins on the front of their nose cones. That's because they've got such an excess of power as Arnoux goes past Clay Regazzoni. Very few cars in this race, and just to prove me wrong, Clay Regazzoni has them on the Ensign, I see, have nose fins, because most of them have left them off to get extra speed down the straight. But the Renaults have got so much power, and that is Jarier into the pits. Look at the flat spot on the tyre, but they're changing the rear tyre.
Well, I think Jarier must have had a very high-speed spin there. You can see on the top of the left front tyre there's a big patch. Now that is a flat spot, and the left rear was punctured and flat when he came in. So what happens is when you spin at high speed and you hit the brakes to keep the car, although spinning, going in a straight line with its momentum, if that's what you want to do, of course it's rather like locking your brakes up from 180 miles an hour. The tyres stay still and just wear out. They even wear big holes in on that one spot. But they, yes, you can see the right front over there with the gap, with the flat spot in. They're not changing. I think this must be a mistake by the Tyrrell team. Jarier has obviously caught them unprepared and surprised, and they're sending him out with a flat spot on, which will undoubtedly, if nothing else, will shake his eyeballs in their sockets. He won't even be able to see well, because the vibration will be huge.
There's the position. Jabouille leads, Arnoux, Lafitte, Reutemann, Piquet, and in 6th position, Didier Pironi. And significantly, there are 4 Frenchmen in the first 6 places in the South African Grand Prix, with 57 out of the 78 laps completed, but still a long way to go. And it's significant that drivers seem to be coming in now with tyre troubles. Both the makes of tyres, the French tyres and the American tyres, have been giving some sort of trouble, and both of them have had to be changed. So, could anything happen to the leaders or the placemen behind them? It's Jabouille, it's Arnoux in 2nd position. Jabouille going past Derek Daly there in the 010 Tyrrell. That's Derek Daly, and that's Keke Rosberg. Keke Rosberg, the Finnish driver in the Skoll Fittipaldi car, last year's Wolf, and he's collected some catch fencing, and his race is obviously very much finished for today. And that is the leader. That is Jean-Pierre Jabouille, the Frenchman in the Renault, and the right front tyre is right off the rim. And Arnoux has gone through into the lead. Cruel luck for Jabouille, because exactly the same thing happened to him in Brazil. He had to retire when he was in the lead, and it looks as though the fates are against the Frenchman so far in 1980 anyway. And so that means that with Jabouille and his Renault out of the race, the Renault hopes now rest solely on the slight young shoulders of René Arnoux as we look at Keke Rosberg's car being pushed away out of the circuit and away from the catch fencing.
Well, that's tragic luck for Jean-Pierre Jabouille. We've got the leader, René Arnoux, out there in the picture now. But this looks to me like a repeat of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Jabouille qualified on the pole, led the race comfortably, pulling away. He had an unfortunate breakdown there when in the lead. It's always sad to break down when you're leading, and Arnoux picked up the pieces, and we seem to be having... There's another tyre problem. Derek Daly has obviously had a blowout. Now he's on Goodyear tyres, so that shouldn't affect the situation for the Renaults who are running Michelin's. And I would say that despite this big problem with tyres, the other teams other than the Renault team would be running probably fairly marginal compounds to try and keep up with the Renaults. I'm quite sure Renault would have backed a fairly conservative choice of tyre compound for the race, and for that reason I think it's probably a fault on that tyre with Jabouille's car, or maybe Renault was suddenly picked up a puncture other than a likelihood necessarily for Arnoux.
And we're looking at Piquet versus Pironi for fourth place. Piquet in the Brabham, and into the pits comes Reutemann. Reutemann in third position, didn't finish in the Argentine, didn't finish in Brazil, and it's tyre troubles again for Carlos Reutemann.
We've lost the battle. Pironi was lined up then onto the straight in the perfect position to try and get past Piquet in front of him, and now we're looking at Reutemann in the pits and missing all the action. I'm afraid television in South Africa is only about 4 years old, and it shows.
And out of the pits goes Carlos Reutemann, and there the leader, René Arnoux, the man from Magny-Cours, in the Renault, driving very, very steadily. He has, of course, got an enormous cushion between himself and the second place man, Jacques Lafitte. Behind Jacques Lafitte, the battle between Piquet and Pironi for third position. And there, at the end of lap 66, Arnoux leads Lafitte, Piquet third, Pironi fourth. Mars in the arrows is in fifth position, and then Carlos Reutemann, and you're looking at the battle, and it's Piquet ahead of Pironi at the moment. Nelson Piquet in third position in the BT48 Ford-powered Brabham, being chased very hard indeed by Didier Pironi. And back to the leader, and it's René Arnoux.
Please come back, Mr. Director, sir. We do want to see the race that's going on. See, there is only one race going on here, and we don't seem to be watching it at the moment, which is really a great shame.
But the leader, Arnoux, on his way, and he's closing up. Arnoux is closing up on John Watson in the McLaren again to lap him. Lafitte in second place. There is the Renault, over 500 horsepower. There's the McLaren, and behind the Renault is one of the Alfa Romeo cars. There is Arnoux closing right up now on number 7, John Watson from Bognor Regis. This is his 96th Grand Prix, and there are rumours of the English driver Stephen South having a place in the McLaren team soon, as we look at Jacques Lafitte in second position. This is Jacques Lafitte in the Ligier, so it's Lafitte in second position, and it's Pironi. That is Didier Pironi,
well,
and he's got ahead of Piquet.
Well,
Didier...
where is Piquet? Piquet isn't behind or in front. Are we sure he hasn't dropped back on him?
Well, we'll have to wait and see, but Didier Pironi has moved up into third place, and somebody off at Crowthorne, and it's Jeff Lees. It's Jeff Lees, number 17, the driver from Cliff near Tamworth, in only his second Grand Prix. The shadow out of the race, and it looks as though it's been saved by the bank and the crash fencing as we go into the last lap with René Arnoux, who has put up the fastest lap, 1 minute 13.15, 123.1 miles an hour. Jacques Lafitte is 34 seconds behind Arnoux in second position, and Arnoux speed in his fastest lap is over 123 miles an hour. In third position is Didier Pironi in fourth position, and Piquet in the Brabham is in fourth position, and Arnoux there has lapped everybody up to Nelson Piquet in fourth position, because he has lapped Carlos Reutemann in the Saudi Leyland Williams car. He has lapped Jochen Maas, who is in sixth position, and he's now well on his way to the checkered flag for the second Grand Prix in succession. Jacques Lafitte there, number 26 in the Ligier, is in second place, and in third place the other Ligier, Pironi. So it's going to be French car and driver first, French drivers second and third, French cars second and third. The leader, the winner, René Arnoux, over the line, and he has won the South African Grand Prix of 1980 as he won the Brazilian Grand Prix of 1980. So, as Jacques Lafitte finishes second, the results: the winner, René Arnoux; second, Lafitte; third, Pironi; fourth, Nelson Piquet; fifth, Reutemann; and sixth, Jochen Maas in the arrows. And that, of course, changes the World Championship positions, because thanks to his win, René Arnoux moves into the lead by 5 points from Alan Jones. Third, Piquet; fourth, Pironi; and fifth, equal, Elio De Angelis and Lafitte. And the man at the top at the moment is René Arnoux.
It's fantastic for me and for Renault.
How did you feel when you saw Jean-Pierre Jabouille pulling into the side?
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I know this is a problem, because when I am behind Jean-Pierre, I see the car like that, and I think that is a puncture. But for me, at this moment, the car is very good, and I don't know. I have no problem for the race.
And as you've just said, René, you're top of the World Championship with 18 points. Did you expect at the beginning of this season that you'd be in this position in South Africa?
No, because in Argentina is very difficult for Renault, but after for the Brazil and here, the car is very, very fantastic. And I am very happy with my team, because he worked very hard. There is many tests in France, and you win when you work very hard.
You must have been pleased when you saw Alan Jones parked by the side.
Pas compris.
When you saw Alan Jones arrêté,
Yeah.
you were very happy.
Yeah, but it's not my problem, because I have seen the car, but I don't know if it's Jones or Reutemann. The more important for me is to finish the race.
Thank you very much, René
Okay,
Arnoux.
thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So the South African Grand Prix was not at all a happy race for Ferrari. Scheckter and Villeneuve out. Not at all happy for Lotus, De Angelis and Andretti out. Not all that happy for Williams, with only Reutemann in fifth position. But for Renault and for Ligier and for France, a marvellous day, with 4 French drivers in the first 6. In a month's time, Long Beach on March the 30th. Not so easy for the turbos. We'll be there on Grand Prix, so join us for round 4, BBC 2, March the 30th.